नमस्कार। नेपाल बचत तथा ऋण केन्द्रीय सहकारी संघ लिमिटेड नेप्स्कुनद्वारा सञ्चालित सहकारी अभियानको एकमात्र डिजिटल पत्रिका साकोस आवाजको आजको श्रृङ्खलामा हामी अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय श्रम सङ्गठन ILO को नेपाल स्थित कार्यालयका कन्ट्री डाइरेक्टर रिचर्ड हावर्डसँग कुराकानी गर्दैछौँ। Good afternoon, Richard. How are you?
Good afternoon. Nice to meet you.
How do you evaluate the role of cooperatives in general and specifically financial cooperatives in the context of Nepal?
So I think from the ILO perspective, from my view, cooperatives are really central in all countries, but particularly developing countries, to help raise people out of poverty. And cooperatives are really the main touch point in rural communities all over a country, to help SMEs, micro enterprises, to develop and obtain the services and credit and financing that they need. And I think of all the cooperatives, the financial cooperatives have a particularly important role to play, as they do here in Nepal.
ILO in Nepal and the apex body of financial cooperatives in Nepal, Nepskun, have been working together, kind of a strategic partners. Where are we heading in this direction?
Well, I think Nepskun is really the apex body for cooperatives in the country, and for ILO, it is the organization that we must work with, particularly in this context where the government has put so much emphasis on job creation. And we can't have large-scale job creation without the services of Nepskun, to have the right strategy and policies in place with the government to support these micro and small businesses, to not only grow, but also recover in this COVID context and make sure that they have the resources they need to sustain in this context and come out better and stronger than before.
Exactly, you mentioned the same point about the impact of COVID, how long it's going to last, we don't know. So in this context, in order to really penetrate the area, especially the marginalized communities, in uplifting their financial inclusion, what other possibilities can we explore between ILO in Nepal and Nepskun?
I think we can really start really assessing on the ground in these remote communities what these small micro enterprises need, what kind of support they need. And I know the financial services are already in place. The question is, are they reaching the most vulnerable segments of these communities? And if they're not, how can we work together to expand that outreach? And in addition, how can we wrap around additional support and services for these businesses so they can grow and graduate to higher levels? So I think with the financing, we can look at a broader package of offering of support to these businesses. And I think it also needs to link to the efforts to formalize these small businesses. Now, of course, businesses don't really want to register on their own without the right kind of incentives. And I think the cooperatives are the touch point, really, for bringing a range of support, including the financing, but also the technical skills these businesses need, as well as the access to Social Security. We know we have a system coming into place in the country, and yet we haven't been able to reach these micro and small businesses to get them to participate in the Social Security scheme. So I think it's a range of services, from technical skills, Social Security, to advocacy for improved policy environment for these businesses to grow, but also very much the financing.
The other major area in terms of cooperatives in general and financial cooperatives is the issue of digitization, especially in the COVID-hit economy. It's very important to digitize our system so that people have broader access, but that's a real problem in the context of Nepal. So where does ILO in Nepal chip in this context?
Well, I think there's a huge role we could play here, and one is really looking at digitization within the financing industry. So how can businesses register and participate, access finance through digital platforms? That's one thing. I think that for the kind of businesses that you often work with, that's a challenge. The systems need to be simple, user-friendly, realizing a lot of these business owners have very low literacy skills, so they need really that user-friendly experience. But also, we look at digitization across the supply chain and how important that is in this context to ensure access to regular supply in a challenging context, but also access to the best pricing and most efficient delivery and logistics possible. So that's an option. And of course, the interface with customers is another area where digitization is so important right now. So all aspects of digitization, and who's better to do that than the cooperatives who have such reach? And I think that would be a good area of partnership for the future.
But we still have some challenges in terms of policy formation and the support from the government side in regard to uplifting cooperative sector. How does ILO see this?
Well, I think that the biggest barrier that they face, apart from the financing, is really the policy environment. It starts with registration and the complications, the taxation regimes.
Exactly.
A range of issues that these businesses know well, and they've been talking about them for years, but yet there hasn't been change.
Yes.
So ILO must play a role really to support the advocacy, to raise it to government at all tiers, municipal level,
Yes.
provincial level, federal level. So we need all three levels working in a consistent way rather than pulling apart from each other with contradictory policies. So federalism offers the opportunity to create better policies at local levels, but it also means that we have to work well between the tiers, and ILO can certainly play an advocacy role there with the cooperatives.
ILO has been supporting NEPSCUN in terms of policy reformations and other areas also. So how is that program going?
Well, I think, we have a draft policy in place to support the financial cooperatives, but now the challenge is really to realize that policy and to push for its adaptation and implementation. I mean, we know there are a lot of good policies on the books, but that's only the first step, the easiest step really. It's really consistent implementation. So that's going to be a long road there of cooperation between ILO and NEPSCUN. It's necessary.
Okay, we've been practicing federalism, but the real fruit of federalism has not reached to the needy people. In this context, what message do you have for the NEPSCUN and the support of ILO?
Well, I think particularly I can speak of ILO, that we need to be much better at our operations at municipal level. We can't be in all the municipalities, but we can work in some identified municipalities to create better responses, more effective responses at local level, and then work with the provincial government to scale those up at a broader level. But really, we haven't been strong. Federalism has been going on for a number of years, but we're still stuck very much in a Kathmandu-focused approach. So we need to really sort of rehaul our approach at municipal level and really be on ground level to make a difference here.
So we need furthermore penetration in terms of reaching the people. Now, in order to really uplift the people, especially post-COVID scenario I'm talking about, what kind of future do you see about cooperatives in the post-COVID area?
So I think the area of graduation or developing a high growth model, supporting the municipal level governments really to figure out what are the package of support that these enterprises need and implement a support program across a longer period of time, realizing that needs change over time. And an intervention, say just training for a few months, or it's really not sufficient. It has to be a long-term partnership between ILO, NEPSCUN, and the businesses at hand. And because you are in the financing side of that it's already often a long-term relationship. So what other support we can bring in over the longer period? I think that's critical to see the changes needed, not just a short-term response.
Okay, ILO in Nepal has been recently awarded as the FWRA Credit Award by NEPSCUN on its anniversary. What do you have to say about this?
Well,
how does it feel?
I'm not sure. It feels very good and very much appreciated. I think we have to do a lot more to earn that recognition. Yes. It's nice to be recognized, but it's much harder to live up to the recognition. So we still have a lot more to do on our side to earn that praise and that credit. But we're very grateful for that.
So we believe that our relationship and ties will further strengthen in the days to come.
Yes, definitely. They must.
Okay.
Thank you.
When we are nearing to the conclusion of our interview, anything you'd like to suggest to the NEPSCUN? Any suggestions?
Well, I think just stay the course. I think you're doing a good job, and really we can learn from each other. But I think you're in the right direction. We have full respect for you and your work, and we will keep working with you.
Thank you and very much for your valuable time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.